As it turns out, feminism can be a little bit harder to define than you think it might be.
You know, I'd have to agree with that. A definition for something that claims to advocate for women's rights while simultaneously fucking over many, many women. It's very hard to define without using the word hypocritical. But I'm sure you're going to give it a go.
By simply Googling feminism, you come up with a whole number of very different definitions that oftentimes contradict each other.
Ah yes, Googling something. Hardcore research for the left. And I think generally you'll find movements like feminism that have nothing left to do in civilized societies are scared to disband because they'll lose this sense of community. And all their women's studies degrees will become even more worthless, so they'll desperately search for anything and everything to try and keep themselves valid, while being absolutely riddled with contradictions.
You get the definition, the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes.
Oh, if I had a penny for every time I heard that. The equality of the sexes is an interesting one because women only want equality at the top of society. They generally seem to skip over jobs like mechanics, engineers, delivery guys, and sanitary workers. You see, I would like equalities in those sectors. Oh, and for true equality, women do need to start killing themselves more to level off that suicide rate, which is disproportionately in men's favour. I say that because I am sure there are feminists out there who would rather kill themselves than help lower male suicide rates. Go equality!
Feminism advocates for not only women's rights, but actually people's rights as a whole when you look at issues like toxic masculinity that are also influence and benefit from feminism.
Toxic masculinity. Right, one of those problems faced by humanity. You know what I think might be a bit more of a problem than toxic masculinity? ISIS. I don't think I've heard much from the left on that though. Out of sight, out of mind, I guess. I hate the idea that masculinity is toxic. I imagine there are plenty of feminists who band this phrase around without the brainpower to analyse what it really means. The lovely specimen in this video, for example. Masculinity. Masculinity itself being toxic. That leaves femininity. And it seems that's what feminists want. Masculine girls and feminine guys. Well, it won't work. Society needs real men, and it always will, and it's not toxic.
The belief that women are and should be treated as potential intellectual equals and social equals to men.
Potential equals, implying they're not, but they can always get there if they work at it. Nice.
The biggest disgrace to my gender.
I'd say that was feminists as a whole.
The fifth entry on Urban Dictionary starts with
The Urban Dictionary. Well, why am I not surprised? I guess the real dictionary is a bit grown up for you.
First of all, I want to say that most of the entries on feminism are disrespectful and infuriating.
I guess the person that wrote that ironically doesn't know the definition of definition. It's not an opinion piece. And even so, I bet the person who wrote that all definitions of feminism are disrespectful and infuriating is still a feminist. Too bad those double standards aren't currency, it'd actually have futures.
So it looks like all of these definitions, while being sort of all over the place, do tend to come back to women's rights or advocating for women.
It does come back to that, doesn't it? So I find feminists claiming that it's for everyone to be extremely dishonest. Why don't feminists complain about the disproportionate number of domestic abuse shelters? Or the disproportionate split in low-paid manual labour jobs? Because it only advocates for women. You're either a moron or a liar if you claim it benefits more than just women.
Not everyone that benefits from feminism are women.
Though, I guess virtue signalling politicians and guys also trying to get laid benefit from feminism.
Again, just through a quick Google search, you can find 1.5 million different names and types of feminism.
I imagine it can go by many different names, like the Cult of the Uniformed, Band of Stupid. You get the idea.
Things like anarchist feminism, black feminism, and womanism.
Womanism. Yeah, I'm sure that's not just for women. I'm sure it does plenty to help out everyone else. And you say that's a different name for feminism. Interesting.
Cultural feminism, environmental or ecofeminism, liberal feminism, which is often referred to as mainstream feminism, and radical feminism.
Ecofeminism. That's a new one to me. It would be funny if feminism wasn't so damaging. How feminists are trying to shoehorn different causes in with feminism just so people will call themselves feminists. And as for radical feminists, they're the ones that are getting laws passed, making things like manspreading a punishable crime, while papering over how women put their massive handbags on the seat next to them.
Intersectionality is the way that different social categories like race, social class, and gender come together to form different variations of oppression and discrimination.
If we take what you said at face value, then intersectionality causes oppression and discrimination. Seriously, listen back to what she just said and tell me if you don't come to the same conclusion. To me, it just says you don't have a firm grasp on what you're trying to educate us about, which frankly is feminism in a nutshell.
Essentialism is the idea that every construct or political group has certain characteristics that link it together and is used often to define it.
Ironic how feminists go on and on about how feminism doesn't define all women and you're such unique and special snowflakes with all your problems and your own genders and you can't possibly know everything about us. But if you disagree, you're a misogynistic, toxic, racist, patriarchal rape apologist without exception.
Essentialism poses problems because it asks questions like, what is true of an issue that all women face?
Periods. All women have that, or will, or have had that.
When you start asking questions like this, you're getting at essentialism. You're trying to get to the root of what feminism is.
I'm pretty sure we can all agree the root of feminism is a throbbing tumour hiding somewhere in society.
However, it's problematic because any time you get to a definition of feminism that is so general that it includes all women, you start to exclude women that belong to minority groups.
That's another thing I've never really understood about feminism. You're so desperate to include minority groups, despite how badly those minority groups treat women. You defend certain groups that treat women like absolute shit and then bury your heads in the sand about it.
The non-inclusive nature of feminism has been the major critique of feminism for over the past century.
No, it fucking isn't. That's a very recent development. I doubt you even know how long a century is.
Mainstream feminism today is white feminism, as it's more often than not exclusionary of women of color and trans women.
Then why do trans women and women of colour continue to call themselves feminists then if it does exclude them? And why are you, a white woman, talking to us about this? Isn't that a hate crime yet? Not yet. Give it time.
So while coming to a good theoretical definition of feminism that encompasses everything feminism is while separating it from everything it's not, is nearly an impossible task.
Oh, is it? Nearly an impossible task. It makes you wonder about the credibility of the university courses if even the graduates of that can't adequately explain the bullshit they try and peddle.
We can find a good operational definition for feminism. Feminism is about advancing people who are marginalized based on their gender.
Oh good, another definition. That's productive considering I've banged on about how many definitions there are to this shit now. And your all-wise and brilliant conclusion to the video, in the master definition you have graced us with, does nothing to address the problem which you were just talking about, which is it apparently excludes minorities. Frankly, I don't think these minorities want to be covered by the definition of feminism, because then they'd lose victim points and not have as much reason to moan. So lovely viewers, what definition would you give feminism as you know what it really is? I think the movement of middle-class crybabies with nothing else to complain about in life sums it up quite well. I'll put the answers that make me laugh the most at the end of my next video, and as always, thank you for your time.